Hello everyone, my name is Yusuf Edwards, and welcome to part 73 of the Abigail Freeman story. Let us begin. They were outside, Abigail and Margaret. They were outside in the beach. They were on the beach just chilling out. They were having a great time at the beach. Beforehand, due to the fact that a couple minutes ago, beforehand, Abigail and Margaret ate some ice cream together, and now they were just hanging out, just chilling out, getting a suntan. After that, Abigail decided that she wanted to go home because she wanted to finish the rest of the book. So she says to her wife, "You can hang out at the beach some more. I'm going back home if you don't mind." "Don't worry, I'll be hanging out without you. Thank you," she said, and then they kissed. She got up from the sand, put back her clothes on, put her clothes back on, I should say, and then she got back into the car, and she was home. She then goes back, she then walks to her office. She then opens the door to it, and she walks to her office. She then sits down, or she then pulls back the chair. She then sits down at her desk, and then she picks up her pencil, and then she begins writing the rest of the book. She begins writing, "I was very nervous to go back to school. Summer camp was over for me, and so was summer for everybody else. Fast forward to springtime. I was heavily nervous, and at this point scared, because Beatrice had up to that point broke my ankle and traumatized me to no end. She was a horrible person to me, and of course Margaret. Of course I didn't know how horrible she was until I came back. So it was a normal day, just like every day after and before and or after. This is kind of hard for me to write," she says to herself. "I just have to do it. Okay. It was like an everyday thing, right? I eat my breakfast. I wait for the school bus, the pink one. Everything was going great. I knew that Beatrice was going to be there. She was. But that didn't necessarily worry me because I forced it not to, which could be or could not be a good decision, take a pic with us. I assume that you will be taking a pic with us, she says in the book, anticipating this was going to happen. Anyway, I remember being very nervous getting on that bus, but I did nevertheless. Before I got on the bus, I took a deep breath and I took my first step. Well, Margaret greeted me and told me to sit next to her, which I always did, of course. And that's exactly what I did. Nothing was different. After that, I just waited and waited for the rest of the students to get on the bus. Me and Margaret was the only ones there. Of course, we needed to wait for Beatrice and her friends, which I dreaded the whole time, but I said nothing. They arrived and immediately made my life hell. Started calling me names and all awful stuff. I just closed my eyes, and finally the rest of the students arrived on the bus, and we were off. We were off to go to school. After that, the bus driver said her goodbyes to us. We got off the bus, and we got to the school. I was smelling the air, but as I was smelling the air, Beatrice pushed me down and started punching me. Excuse me. I, of course, told her to stop, but she wouldn't until the principal, who was furious at her, told her to stop and almost put hands on her, much to my disappointment and my, fear that she was going to get in trouble for that. Of course, she told me to keep it a secret, and I did. It wasn't necessarily a big deal, but I knew that they would find it a huge deal. You're not supposed to do that, as we know. Anyway, I made it to math class. I got taught math, and everything was great. I learned my lesson in math class. I was getting it. I was slowly but surely getting the lesson. I was so happy. I was so happy about that too. After that, we went to lunch. That's when the trouble began. That's when the trouble began again. It was so simple and very, very, very cool. I ate my tater tots, drank my milkshake. It was chocolate, of course, along with the rest of my friends. Everything was going fine. Everybody was eating their lunch, I was eating mine. I was sharing my tater tots with Margaret, which Robert thought was a little bit weird. Why would you do that? But I thought it was a funny thing to do, in my opinion. Of course, the other people did not. But that's not my problem. That wasn't our problem. Anyway, we were eating lunch together when all of a sudden Beatrice and her friends grabbed me and Margaret and started beating us up. Unfortunately, I did not stand for it, and I finally stood myself. I grabbed her and I punched her in the face, knocking her out, which means that I just punched her in the face. It was quite gratifying, but quite horrifying too. She ran away. Well, she was knocked out actually, so her friends carried her to the nurse's office, and we continued eating our lunch. I did. All of a sudden, the principal called me. Apparently, at the nurse's office, of course, the nurse was friends with Beatrice's parents. And apparently also they didn't know how much of an asshole she was. So I was suspended. To make a long story short, but to make a long story long, I went to the principal office. My mom, Beatrice's mom, and her dad came to the principal office way before I did and told me to pack up my bags and that I was suspended. Of course, I was horrified at myself, and I was talking mad shit about myself because of it. I was so ashamed. We got to the car and she says, "Don't do that ever again." I'm sorry I punched her. Not that. I'm not talking about that, Abigail. I'm not talking about that at all. I'm talking about you saying all that awful shit about yourself. Or stuff about it. Stuff about yourself. Don't ever do that again. You did what you had to do, and I'm proud of you. You want some ice cream? Okay. And that was it. Abigail, reflecting on what her mom said, took a moment to remember that moment. After that, she then gets back up from her office chair and she puts the pencil back in the pencil holder, and then after that, she goes right to the living room to watch some television. And that was it. To be continued. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, leave a like, subscribe to my channel, and leave a comment down below telling me what you like about the video or hate about the video, and I will see you next time. Bye bye for now.